Republican state officials and political candidates returning to the Fancy Farm stage this weekend, and many used some of their time to talk about one person who was not there, the governor. As LEX 18's political reporter Carolina Buchek explains, they use the stage as a platform to criticize the governor's handling of the pandemic.
It's great to be back at Fancy Farm.
Political speeches returned to Fancy Farm this year, but it wasn't the same. The space where Democrats stand remained mostly empty, and no Democratic elected officials spoke on stage.
Why I chose not to go to Fancy Farm this year.
Governor Andy Beshear explained that he declined his invitation for several reasons. One of them is because he's worried about the rising number of COVID cases.
We don't have any elections this year either. And finally, we're gonna the event in and of itself is concerning in the midst of the Delta variant.
But even though he wasn't there, Governor Beshear was one of the biggest topics of conversation. His name was part of many different speeches.
Andy Beshear, Governor Andrew Beshear, Andy Beshear.
And in typical Fancy Farm fashion, jokes were made. A lot of the criticism in them was directed at the governor.
Now that I think about it, Mark, if you would have told the governor that this was a press conference, he and Dr. Stack would have been here an hour early, I think.
In 2019, Andy Beshear promised that if you elected him governor, you'd see bipartisanship, mutual respect, civility in government. He was elected governor, and that's exactly what you've gotten, but from me.
And this criticism, especially about Beshear's COVID decisions, is likely going to continue for a while. Some of the Republicans who spoke at Fancy Farm could face off against Beshear in 2023, when the governor's office is on the ballot. State Auditor Mike Harmon, the only big GOP candidate who has declared their run for governor, hit Beshear on his handling of unemployment.
You know, in 2023, the voters of Kentucky will have a chance to help Andy Beshear in the same way his policies helped many of them, by sending him home.
And political experts say this is just the beginning of a long campaign season for an election that is still more than 2 years away. In Frankfort, Carolina Buchek, LEX 18 News.